Hello and welcome to the Inner Wellness Hub. I'm Holly Malmston and I cannot wait to share with you the topic of conversation today. And we've been talking about emotions and the frequencies that they produce, and I want to continue on with that idea. But I want to take it a little further. We've been talking about frequencies and emotional frequencies. And I just want to remind you again that a frequency is an invisible wave or current that travels, and that invisible wave or current is being generated by a vibration. And the rate at which a vibration occurs, how fast or slow something moves back and forth, that's going to determine the wave frequency. And within each traveling wave, there are peaks and troughs. Just think of waves in an ocean. I live right next to the ocean, and I'm at the beach all the time watching my daughter surf, and waves typically come in sets, and they're very ordered sets. Unless there's a storm or really high winds, that's the exception. That's something that kind of intrudes on the ocean. But on a regular basis, the waves in the ocean are in motion, and they travel in sets, which means they have a pattern. Like everything in nature follows an order and a pattern. And when the wave sets come in, each wave has a peak, the crest of the wave, and each wave has a trough on the downside. And it's the same way with frequencies, the invisible waves that emotions emit too. There are within that wave, there are peaks and there are troughs, and the highness and lowness of those peaks and troughs, and the quality of those peaks and troughs, and the rate at which they go up and down is its frequency. You've learned by now that all the common emotions have already been measured and mapped, and scientists can actually already know the frequency of certain emotions. So any frequency below 100 is going to be considered a low or negative frequency. And so if the emotions that you are carrying have a frequency that falls in the low range, 100 or below, that is going to affect your own internal resonance. And if you have, if the emotions that you're carrying are above 100, they're considered in the higher frequency range. That's actually going to raise your own internal resonance, and things are going to work much better. We have been given the God-given responsibility to manage and maintain our own internal atmosphere. So if these low range emotions, which are expressing their low range frequencies in our bodies, if those are allowed to remain for long periods of time, your entire body will sync up with those lower range with that, and it will tune itself to those low frequency ranges, because everything is designed to follow an order, and everything in your body will instinctually move into some kind of an order, whether it's the order God intended or not. So when those low range frequencies are traveling and flowing through you, and your energy system is conducting those low quality, low range frequencies, there's going to be a malfunction of some sort. That's just what's going to happen. That your body and your mind are not able to work properly or work in the way they were intended when they don't have the proper frequency range traveling through you. And so what will happen is, if there's a malfunction, a symptom of some sort will show up. And really, it's a matter of the weakest link. So whatever the weakest link is that an individual has, that's where the malfunction will take place. And then there will be a symptom of some sort. So there will either be, and this is actually a good thing, because your body is communicating. It's letting you know just like a check engine light that comes on in a car. The symptom is designed to let you know something is out of tune, something is out of sync, and there is a low frequency, low energy problem that requires attention. So when you have a symptom, that's actually your body's doing a good job. It's doing what it's supposed to do. But the symptoms can vary. The symptoms can come up, the symptoms can produce, a sickness, a disorder of some sort, because those low frequency ranges are out of order. They're out of the original order that you're designed to have. That can be a dis-ease. That's where the word disease comes from, is when you're internally in a state of dis-ease. And what causes a state of dis-ease are these low frequency range energetic patterns that put your internal state into dis-ease. There can be a mental disorder or mental dis-ease. There can be emotional disorder or dis-ease, and emotional lockdowns and blockages, stuff like that. It can also show up spiritually. It can show up in this where you feel disconnected from God or his presence, or you're not able to receive his love and his goodness and his joy and his peace that belongs to you. You're not able to receive it. And it can also show up in your jobs and in your finances, because when you have those low frequency range waves traveling through you, your brain is not receiving the full power and energy that it requires to function fully. So the brain is compromised, your creativity is compromised, your basic just energy. You will be more tired and fatigued, and when you're tired and fatigued, you can't produce what you normally would, and your work is not going to be as effective outside of you. And the last thing is, it can show up in your relationships, in whether it's relationship within your own family or your home, or relationships that are important to you. Those low frequency range patterns almost like they take and rob you of the ability to give of yourself to other people in the way that you were designed to, because you simply don't have enough available energy to really give to someone else in a way that produces a healthy, life-giving relationship. So this is really, really important. And really what I want to highlight today in this episode is the concept of inherited emotional frequencies. So not only can we hold our own emotional frequencies, but they can be passed down through our ancestors, through the family line. And this may sound so hard to believe, and for some of you, we've heard this concept. The Bible talks about the iniquities of the father being passed down through the children, and we're not even talking about that really. I mean, that's more of a spiritual issue. Like you can see, family curses, or family family spirits, or family patterns being passed down. But this is something even, I think that it's correlated to what the Bible says, but this is something physiological, just like the low range frequencies are physiological in our bodies, because those low range frequencies, where they affect the cells. So your cells are what holds those frequencies, and whatever frequencies the cells are emitting will travel to the nervous system. So the nervous system will take those invisible waves that are traveling from your cells, from the vibration of your cells, and your nervous system will take those and hold them, and then tell your brain what to do from there. So this is called epigenetics. It's a whole scientific field where over recent years, science have discovered and tested and studied that emotional frequencies can pass from the mother and the father through the DNA to their offspring. And this is incredible news, because when we know that this is not only a spiritual thing, but it's also a physiological thing, we know what to do. We actually, there are very, very easy ways of getting rid of emotional frequencies or emotional energy that you are holding that's not even yours, that you inherited from your parents. And I cannot tell you how many people that come to me that are struggling or suffering in some way, and when they come to me, we discover that it's an inherited energetic pattern. It's not even theirs. And I love it. This is the most incredible privilege that I have, to get to witness someone who cancels and removes and changes an energetic and emotional pattern that's been there for generations. And they get to be the one that stands up and change it. Not only do they release it and they change it, but it doesn't go any further. They get to be the one that stops it and stops that pattern. And it is the most incredible thing to witness. I believe these people have the most incredible honor. It's just such an honor for them to be able to be that one in the family, to change dysfunctional and harmful emotional energetic patterns. And I want to add just a few more details about the science of epigenetics and what has been discovered so far. And I think most of us know at this point that a baby in the womb can be affected by the mother. So for instance, if the mother is depressed, or the mother is stressed or going through something traumatic, that can affect the baby in the womb. And so the baby in the womb will absorb and take on those things that the mother's experiencing. Also, the baby in the womb can absorb anything that's going on around them. So if the household or the home of that mother that's carrying the baby is very hostile, or there's a lot of anger, or there's a lot of fighting or strife or something like that, the baby will be affected and can take on what's going on in the whole household. So I think a lot of us know that, but it goes even further. So for instance, we've learned that the low range emotional frequencies, for instance, shame is the very lowest emotional frequency. Shame carries a frequency of only 20 hertz. So the amount of the rate of the vibration that the emotion of shame produces is only 20 hertz. That's so low. So if a mother was carrying shame or felt shame, and she never got healed of that, or never resolved that in herself, at the point of conception, that the frequency of shame would pass into the DNA of her offspring. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it that way, because energy can't be created or destroyed. And so that energy, that frequency of shame is still alive. It's still continuing, and it just continues on into the DNA and the life of the next person in that family. It can also come from the father. So if the father, whatever the father in the family line was carrying, if the father was holding, it could be anything, extreme anger, or insecurity, or hatred of women, or pride, or any of these things that it could be anything and everything that the father was also carrying inside in their emotional atmosphere, that was a low range frequency, below 100, that also will go at conception. When the two cells meet at conception, when the part of the male and the part of the female come together and meet, the frequencies from the father also can travel into the DNA of the offspring. And then if that offspring carries those inherited emotional frequencies, and throughout their lifetime doesn't ever get resolved or released or healed, it continues. So those frequency patterns continue into the offspring. And I have done analysis and tested people that go back really, really far, really, really far in their family line. And so it's kind of one of those things where when I find it, people will say, yeah, I did one recently where there was this emotion of worthlessness. And when I tested the client, I went through my regular way of testing, and what came up was that it was an inherited emotion. It wasn't even hers. It was what I'm talking about, an inherited emotional frequency pattern that she was born with. And when I told her that, almost this sigh of relief came over her, because she said, yes, I felt that way my entire life. I can't remember a time when I didn't feel that, and I could never figure out why. There was never anything that I could put my finger on that caused me to feel that way. I just always did. And so this is the normal reaction or response when people find out that they're carrying an inherited emotion or a frequency pattern that passed through their family line. It's something that they almost like don't even know any different. They don't know what it's like to not have that internal emotional, have that as part of their internal state, because they were born with it. And so this is so amazing right now to be alive in this time period where the science of epigenetics is just booming, and there's new discoveries and new research and new amazing conclusions that are coming out all the time. And so I just wanted to share that with you. And I just wanted to say, if you look up the word epigenetics, there's going to be a lot of different information. There's going to be some weird stuff that's kind of out there and sounds really off base, but there's also going to be some really good stuff and some things that are based in truth. And I just want to add this goes with anything that exists on this earth. There's going to be the true pure form, and there's going to be a distorted form, because God's the only one that creates. And so if anything exists on this earth, whether it's energy patterns or frequencies or emotions or any of these things, He created it, and it was meant to be for our good. And what happens is the enemy takes what God has created and what God intended for good, and he copies it. So the enemy cannot create, the enemy can only copy and imitate and then distort that thing. And so what was true is now in a distorted form. It's not the pure true form of it. And then also all of these things that exist, when humans, women get their hands on it, it can become distorted. We don't always get the full understanding of what's going on. So all of those things considered, when you look up the science of epigenetics, there is this element of truth to it, and there's a pure, true form of it, and that is what I'm talking about. It is so incredibly valuable and important because it can change your life. And who wants to be carrying around extra emotional baggage and emotional energy frequencies that are not even yours? I mean, it's enough to have your own to have your own emotional patterns, your own emotional blockages, less carrying the stuff that came from your ancestors that you inherited. So I just wanted to get this out to you so that you can understand and know about it, and know that there's something you can do about it. So if you would like to know more about this, if you would even like to know if you are carrying or holding any emotional frequencies that are not yours, that are generational, that you inherited, please go to my website, prosperwithin.com, and you can book a free consultation, and I would be happy to discuss this further with you and to see if my techniques would benefit you and help you blueprint a plan. Cheers to emotional freedom for you and to a complete transformation of your internal state that you have at your fingertips.